So the Washington Commanders and Ron Rivera have a quarterback decision to make, and that's what we're going to talk about in today's video. I'll talk about what I think they should do at the quarterback position for the rest of the season and what I think they will do. And if you guys are new, please subscribe for Washington and NFL content. I'm really close to 10,000 subscribers, and I'm trying to hit that by the end of the year. It takes 1 second, it's free, and I'm sure someone who's watching isn't subscribed. So go ahead and do that and hit that like button and that notification bell. So in the San Francisco 49ers game, Taylor Heinicke actually had a pretty good first half and, solid start to the second half, but things started to get a little shaky. He has the fumble, which, isn't all his fault, but, you got to know who you're going up in Nick Bosa and the 49ers defensive line and get rid of it earlier. And then the next drive, you throw an interception that probably should have been a pick six, but Brian Robinson got lucky and his foot was touching the player. And Ron Rivera decided to bench Taylor Heinicke for the rest of the game. Carson Wentz came in, looked pretty good. We'll talk about that in a second. But after the game, Ron Rivera told reporters that he'll make a decision on the quarterback position early this week. So I think he said by Wednesday. So could happen after I make this video, could happen Tuesday, could happen Wednesday. We'll see what happens, but a decision will be made. It'll either be Taylor Heinicke or Carson Wentz. Real quick, look at Carson Wentz's game against the 49ers. So this is his first drive, 11 plays, 82 yards, and a touchdown. He had a 20-yard touchdown pass to Curtis Samuel, 7 for 10, 73 yards, 10 touchdowns, and 4 different receivers touched the ball. He looked good. He definitely looked good, but again, a lot of his throws were underneath stuff, which was wide open that, the defense was giving it to him, but they were blitzing him at times as well. And the Curtis Samuel play, that was a great throw. That's a throw we have been missing for a while. And, you saw Curtis Samuel start out the season on fire. And then, because Carson Wentz really liked throwing the ball to him, but Taylor Heinicke a little bit less, but I'm fine with that just because he's giving the ball to Terry more, but still nice to see Curtis get involved there at the end of the game. And Jonathan Williams was getting some catches as well. But the play I really liked was I thought for sure he was getting sacked. He avoids the pressure, moves a little bit to the outside, runs up, and does a little bit of a shovel pass to Jonathan Williams for a nice gain. That was a great play. And that is what really was hurting the Commanders when he wouldn't make that play and you just be a statue in the pocket and get sacked. So very small sample size, but I did like what we saw from Wentz. So let's talk about, what I think will happen and what I think should happen at the quarterback position moving forward. So, Taylor Heinicke got benched for a reason, and he was on a short leash for a reason. Before the game, there was reports that from Keim, from Jay Glazer, and others, that if Heinicke struggled, he would be benched. And that is exactly what happened. So there were things that, led up to the game, that made, Taylor Heinicke be on a short leash with Ron Rivera, and rightfully so. And the thing is, Taylor Heinicke, it was a great ride with Heinicke at times, and I'm going to be forever grateful for what he's done. And just like right here, what this guy says, all he did was ever answer his phone, take a job opportunity, and worked really hard to help us win games. Taylor won more games than a $28 million former MVP QB. Not too bad for a blue-collar worker. Now Wentz do something. And I agree with a lot of that. Heinicke, was really good this offseason in terms of, he understood his role as a backup, but knew he would always, he would need to be ready in case Wentz got hurt or, didn't perform well. And that's what happened. Wentz got hurt, and Heinicke came in and did enough in a lot of these games to get the Commanders to win. Not many games, if any, was he the reason they won the games. But a lot of the games, he helped them win, and he rallied the guys around him and did enough to get those wins. And definitely thankful that he was able to do that for the Commanders. But for me, I personally would go to Carson Wentz for at least this game, and here's why. The Commanders' offense has been awful with Heinicke, and it was not good with Carson Wentz either, but it has been really, really bad with Taylor Heinicke, and this is not just his fault. Of course, it's not just Taylor Heinicke's fault. It's also Scott Turner's fault, the offensive line's fault, but of course, it's his It's his fault as well. So I just want to go through so we can see game by game the Commanders' like offensive points that the amount of points that they've scored. It's not good. So let's look in the beginning. With Wentz, they scored 28, then 27, then 8. That was one of the worst games I've ever seen. Then 10, that was bad, and then 17. And then this game, 12, they won, but Wentz is playing with a broken finger. So we'll take that game out of Wentz's, whatever. He really didn't play the game. Then Heinicke's first game, they scored 23, then 17, then 17 again, then 32. That game was really good from Heinicke. That was probably his best game. Then they scored 23. 7 of those were off a pick 6. Then 19, then 20, then 12, then 20. But Wentz came into that game as well. So offense has not been good enough to win these games. A lot of the games, the defense has won for them. And I just think something has to change. And, I was, kind of a big Scott Turner guy. Now not so much. But nothing you can really do there. If you think he's a problem or you think he's not the problem, you can't really do anything about it right now. There's no real replacement, and it's really up to Scott Turner to change things up and improve things, improve his play calling. Like, people talk about, like his play design is fine, but it's more his situational play calling, which is the problem. Like, he can design some nice plays up, but he just needs to know when and where to use those plays. And what specific players to target as well or use. But that's a whole different video. But the offense does not look good. And one thing, you can't change the running backs, receivers, because those guys aren't the problem. Offensive line, like, that is an issue. But there's a couple minor adjustments you can make. Like, I don't know why Sam Cosmi is not starting. I don't know why they're rotating him in or out. Lucas is not looking good. Put Cosmi at right tackle and let him just have him at right tackle for a game, see what he can do, because it can't be that much worse than Lucas. And when Cosmi's played, he's been pretty good. So I don't understand that. Especially last year, he was good. This year, he only played a couple games before he got hurt. But I don't know. I don't really understand that. So that can help a little bit. But the major thing you can do is switch the quarterback. So go from Heinicke to Wentz. And here's the thing with Wentz, okay? Yes, he was not great when he played early on, but first game of the season, he played well. Over 300 yards, 4 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Next game, not as great, but still played pretty well. They scored 27 points. They weren't the reason that we lost the game. They were bad in the first half, but the second half was pretty good. Third game against the Eagles, that was just awful. That was one of the worst performances I've seen. The offensive line was terrible. Wentz was terrible. Everything about that game was terrible, and that was terrible performance by Wentz. And the next game as well. Terrible performance by Wentz. And honestly, in this 5th game right here, I think he did a really solid job before the interception at the goal line. And honestly, no one was open on any of those plays. And it really was Rivera's fault for the clock management he made on that drive and in that game and the challenges. And then the next game, he played with a broken finger. So it was kind of a mixed bag, some good games, some terrible games. But it was a very small sample size. So I'm open to bringing Wentz back and seeing what he can do. The floor might be a little bit lower than Heinicke, but the ceiling's definitely higher. If you look at it, Heinicke did not have many honestly, he might have had one good game, maybe 1 or 2 good games in his starts, like the Giants game. No, the other Giants game, I don't think so. Same thing with the Falcons, the Texans, Eagles was a good game. The Vikings, he had his moments, but he also had a back-breaking interception, so no. Colts, not really. Packers was okay. He had one good game, and that was the Eagles game, and then the 49ers game, the first half was great. But, he was not the reason they were winning those games. It was the defense carrying the game, or the team, and the run game doing well, and Heinicke at times making some big plays. I don't want to take anything away from Heinicke, but also I want to keep it real with you guys. He wasn't the reason they were winning games. Part of it, yes. The guys played, played hard for him, and, the guys liked him. But also, part of the reason they were losing early on in the season is because didn't have Brian Robinson. The run game wasn't being established. It probably still should have with Gibson, but Scott Turner didn't want to do that. Also, and that also is on Wentz a little bit. I mean, they had more offensive line injuries early on, and they had Nick Martin starting, and guys like that. Sadiq Charles was starting, but also the defense was much worse early on. Cameron Curl out. I mean, we saw what the defense looked like this week without Cameron Curl. Well, that's what happened the first I think it was 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks. The defense was not good, and a lot of that was because Cameron Curl's out. William Jackson III, that whole fiasco, having him play like early on really hurt us, and then moving Bob McCain into the slot I thought helped a lot. So I think let's see what like the offense has not been playing well at all. Let's change something. Let's see what we can do. We got to win our last 2 games, and I think Wentz might give us a better chance of winning those last 2 games. You don't have to rely on him. Run the football. The Browns aren't an amazing team. You should be able to beat them. It's at home. Run the ball, and when you need to, pass it. But also, Scott Turner's got to make adjustments too. Like, you can't be empty setting, having empty sets the whole time, especially with Wentz at QB. That's something that obviously Heinicke was better than at Wentz, avoiding sacks. Also, though, Heinicke had a turnover in almost every single game besides the Texans game, I believe. He had interception or fumble in each game. You cannot have that. Wentz did as well, but sometimes he made up for it with some touchdowns. So I really don't think there's like obvious choice either way, but I think they should go to Wentz just to switch something up to bring a spark to this team. Wentz obviously has a higher ceiling. Also, we had a small sample size with Wentz. Either way, Heinicke is not the long-term answer, and neither is Wentz. But we're talking about making the playoffs here, and I think Wentz gives you a better chance of making the playoffs at this point. I think Heinicke had a long enough leash. He got the Giants game, which he tied. Then he lost the Giants game, and then he was on track to lose the 49ers game as well. He had more than enough time to switch things up, and now you go to Carson Wentz. I believe that's what they should do, and I think they will do it as well. I honestly, if you believe strongly that they need to go to stick with Taylor Heinicke, I'm not going to strongly disagree with you, honestly. I'll slightly disagree with you, but I don't think there's an obvious answer here. But here you look at this. Record when the Commanders scored 19 plus points this year is 5-2. Like, we got to score points. We have not been scoring points, and that's the reason we're losing. I mean, obviously, this past week, our defense did not play well. Neither did our special teams, neither did our offense. But in most of these games, our defense is playing well enough where if we just score a reasonable amount of points, like 21 points, we'll win the game. Like, look at all the games we would have won with 21 points. This one, that's 2 extra wins right there. And then this one, that's 3. Like, that's a lot of games that with 21 points, you win. Our defense has been, playing well. Offense, though, not so much. So offense has to step up. We'll see what Wentz can. Well, if they do go to Wentz, we'll see what he can do. And hey, if he's not looking good, you can still pull him. Like, if you stick with Heinicke, though, I think Heinicke, he's got a few drives, and if he looks terrible, you got to go to Wentz early. But with Wentz, give him a half, 3/4, and if he's looking like really, really bad, and you're somehow still in the game, go back to Heinicke. You really, There's nothing much to lose here in terms of the quarterback position. None of them are great, but I would go to Wentz. That's my thought right there. And I agree with Al Galdi here saying Heinicke wasn't the Commanders' biggest problem. That said, Carson Wentz offers more upside. But let's make this clear: the complete collapse of Washington's offensive line in terms of pass protection has been the team's number one problem this year. And also, honestly, the run blocking at times, like, they don't get a lot of push. Like, a lot of these runs, it's Robinson, man. It's Robinson making those plays, getting those extra yards. So offensive line needs a complete overhaul, in my opinion, this offseason. Like Leno, I know a lot of people don't like Leno. I mean, not the person. Everyone likes Leno, the person. He's a good guy in the community. But I don't think he's as bad as people are saying he is. He's not great, of course, but he's not your biggest issue. I think left guard and right guard are positions you need to address. And then maybe even center, honestly. I love Chase Roulier, but you need to have a backup plan in case he just keeps getting hurt. And then right tackle. I mean, you got to decide what you're doing there. If Cosme's going to be that guy, I think Cosme should be a part of this offensive line in the future. Whether it's the right tackle, right guard, or left guard, somewhere, I think he's good enough to be a good player. So I want to hear what you guys have to say in the comments section. Who do you think the Commanders should and who do you think the Commanders will start at QB against the Browns? Thanks for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed. And please, guys, subscribe. Hope you guys had a great Christmas or Hanukkah if you guys celebrate that. And, Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. Peace.